Printing Comes to Europe, Chapter 5. Typographic printing, printing with movable type, allowed for the economical and multiple production of alphabetic communications. This resulted in the rapid spread of knowledge, increasing literacy. Chapter 5 traces printing in Europe from the introduction of relief printing from China to the invention of typographic printing by Johannes Gutenberg. Although a lot of other printers were experimenting in Germany, the Netherlands, France, and Italy, and they're recognized as also having been involved in experiments with movable type, it was really Gutenberg who pulled it all together. Factors that created a climate in Europe that really made the development of typography feasible were the introduction of relief printing from China, the availability of paper, but mostly the growing demand for books by an expanded market. This included an emerging literate middle class along with university students. So here we're looking at an early example of block printing. So that's when both the image and lettering were cut from the same block of wood. And typically examples were devotional prints of saints or playing cards like this that introduce the masses to symbol recognition, sequencing, and logical deduction. These were single surface prints that evolved eventually into block books. So they were woodcut picture books with religious subject matter or brief text. The image we see here is the Jack of Diamonds from 1400, and really the flat stylized design conventions of playing cards haven't changed much in over 500 years. Visual signs designate the suits, and this began as the four classes of medieval society. Hearts signified the clergy, spades, which derived from the Italian word spada, which means sword, stood for nobility. The leaf-like club represented the peasantry, and lastly, the diamonds denoted the burghers. Johannes Gutenberg of Maine is pictured on the left and first brought together the complex systems and subsystems necessary to print typographic books around the year 1450. His life and efforts are described as is the method of punch cutting and casting metal type that he developed, as well as the improvements he made in the design of the printing press and inks for relief printing. On the right, we see a replica of the Gutenberg press. Let's take a look at how he did it. By combining a modified wine press with movable type, Gutenberg invented a press that could make books. More books became available, making literacy available. This was faster than hand printing, and he printed 190 Latin Bibles in the time a scribe could create just one by hand. These early 19th century engravings illustrate Gutenberg's system for casting type. A steel punch is used to stamp an impression of the letter form into a softer brass matrix. After the matrix is slipped into the bottom of the two-part mold, the mold is filled with the molten lead alloy to cast a piece of type, which we see there in example C. When the lead alloy cools, the type mold is opened and the type is removed. And now you have movable type that you can use to print with. Like many inventors, Gutenberg struggled with the relentless expenses of invention. He needed to borrow money to keep going, and he borrowed 800 guilders from Johann Fust. You see him there on the right. He was a wealthy Mainz burgher and merchant, And what he did is he used the printing equipment he invented as collateral. On the eve of completing the Bible that would have paid all his debts, Fust sued Gutenberg and locked him out of the printing shop. The 42-line Bible, which would have been his first printed typographic book, was completed instead by Fust and Gutenberg's skilled assistant and foreman, Peter Schoeffer. The first known book to be printed in color peeled off the press of Johann Fust and his son-in-law, Peter Schoeffer. To seal the deal, Peter ended up marrying Fust's daughter. In 1445, Gutenberg went bankrupt, but he was taken in by a kindly man, Dr. Homery, and he helped him set up his shop again, and after Gutenberg's death, petitioned the courts for ownership of all things related to printing. There was justice in the end because he won and Fust ended up dying of the plague. Fust and Schoeffer produced the main Psalter in 1457, and as you can see here, they integrated multiple colored inks. They went on to produce other valuable books, among them the Psalter in Latin in 1457, and it is the first book to bear a printer's trademark, an imprint, a printed date of publication, and a colophon. Here at the bottom, we see the Fust and Schoeffer colophon and trademark. Gutenberg's invention of the type mold and printing press absolutely revolutionized graphic design. Books became more readily available instead of just for the wealthy and the clergy. Copperplate engraving and woodblock printing were also developed for illustrations and text. Copperplate engraving is printing from an image that is incised or cut down into the printing surface. And this was introduced during the period as a method to print images as well. There is speculation that Gutenberg may have been involved in the research and development of copperplate engraving. As a result of power struggles between German nobles, Mainz merchants and craftsmen ended up fleeing the birthplace of movable type and typographic printing, and thus spread printing to other parts of Europe, most notably France and Italy. So I wanted to show you this gorgeous image of the Gutenberg Bible. It was created between 1450 and 1455, and the superb typographic legibility and texture, the generous margins, and the excellent presswork make this first printed book still a canon of quality that has seldom been surpassed. An illuminator would go back and add the red and blue headers, initials, and text by hand. And I have actually seen 2 Gutenberg Bibles. I was quite privileged to handle one of them with gloves, and this was at the Library of Congress. And I can tell you that it is an absolutely remarkable feeling to turn a page and to see the beauty of the printing, the beauty of that text. I'll never forget it. As knowledge from the ancient world in the medieval era began to spread through the printed word, the fusion became really a catalyst for the creation of the modern world. You see, Gutenberg's invention was incredibly important. These are actually French watermark designs of the 15th century. These mermaid designs were produced by a bent wire that is attached to the mold, and it's used in making paper. So on the envelope to the right, you can kind of see the impression that a watermark makes into the paper. This is a block print of the Annunciation. The black area is an effective focal point unifying the 2 figures. The scroll has a Latin inscription, and it serves really the same communicative function as a talk balloon does in a comic strip. The upper left corner of this print is missing, as you can see. This is a letter K from a grotesque alphabet. It was created in 1464. It's quite inventive. And this page is from a 24-page block book that presented each letter of the alphabet by composing figures into its shape. This is a page from the Ars Moriendi in 1466. You'll see a montage illustration on the left that's really juxtaposing the deathbed scene with the subject's estate. There's a demon in the scroll talk balloon urging, "Provide for your friends," while the other advises, "Attend to your treasures." The densely textured text page recommends that you donate all your earthly goods to the church. So this is an early form of propaganda. Here we see a woodcut illustration for the Book of Trades. It's quite detailed, from 1568. It's a little book that presents over 100 occupations, from the Pope to a scissor sharpener. And these wonderfully crisp illustrations were accompanied by the prolific poet Hans Sachs' very descriptive rhymes. These are the occupations of the graphic arts. In the illustrations, we see the parchment maker, the paper maker, the type founder. There's a printer removing a newly printed sheet from the press, the designer, the woodblock cutter, and the illuminator, and finally a bookbinder. Here we see a letter of indulgence printed by Gutenberg himself in 1454. Now, a letter of indulgence is a document that you are given by the church after you pay money to request the forgiveness of sin. Let's finish up by taking one last look at the Gutenberg Bible. If you think about it, literacy is the key connecting factor between the printing press and the modern internet.